What is coordinated entry? This is the topic of this week's Captain's Corner. Welcome, 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 everyone. This is your place to get informed about first steps to recovery and how we at Safe Harbour help to create healthy and safe communities. I welcome our coordinated entry team and not coordinated entry team, coordinated entry team. It's Monday. Okay, welcome. And Kath, happy you're here. Ahoy.
Ahoy. I'm glad to be having some more of the harbor crew on Captain's Corner. And yeah, it's going to be great. They can let everybody know how they shine their lights in our community.
Awesome. So you ladies, why don't you just say briefly like your name, how long you have been with the harbor, and let's start with that, and then we will find out what coordinated entry is.
Sure. So I'm Mel. I've been with Safe Harbour for 8 years, and I've been with Coordinated Entry for 4 years.
What were you doing before that, Mel?
Before I was frontline in the shelter, the warming center, and I also did the day support program when we were back in our old building. I have done the MATS program, detox. I think I've kind of been everywhere.
You've been everywhere, man.
People's Place when that was ours. That's where I started, was People's Place overnight.
Well, yeah, 100 years ago.
Yeah, 8, almost to the day. Almost to the day. Yeah.
Cool.
No.
Okay, Diana.
I have been with Safe Harbor. I'm Diana. I've been with Safe Harbor for 3.5 years and with Coordinated Entry for 1 year.
And where were you before?
I did the social diversion team, which I loved. I did that for a year and then transitioned to coordinated entry. And before that, I started at the shelter as a shelter supervisor.
Cool. Hey, right on. Okay, Crystal.
I'm up. I've been thinking about 7-8 years. I'm right along with Mel there. Wow. Started at the Harbor House, did all the programs, the warming center, detox, mats. I left for a bit, but I came back because we're all so great and you guys are great. And here I am in coordinated entry.
Because once a harbor girl, always a harbor girl.
That's right. Yeah.
Always a harbor girl.
I had done coordinated entry before, just briefly, and then that's when I left and came back. And I've been back since, back to the harbor in January and then started with coordinated entry around May.
Awesome. So let me ask you, what actually is coordinated entry?
That's an excellent question. Coordinated entry is the entry point to access housing supports underneath the CAP process, coordinated access process in Red Deer.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What's that?
I was just wondering if you want me to keep going with my
you know what, because I just was wondering, like, what is CAP? Like, are there more agencies that do similar things, or is it just is that an overarching name for something? What is?
Yeah, so CAP is a coordinated access process. It's the umbrella that coordinated entry and the agencies that we work with all work under. So when a person is experiencing homelessness, they can call coordinated entry, and we will do a pre-screen with them to determine if they are maybe a fit for one of the prevention programs that are kind of the step before coordinated entry, or if they do indeed need coordinated entry. If they need coordinated entry, we schedule an appointment, and then they do an intake plus what we call a SPDAT. A SPDAT is a type of assessment that we do. It's a series of questions. It gives us a really good idea of what life looks like for that person. It's basically a snapshot of their life and all of the things that we would need to tell a caseworker before that caseworker meets them. So from that intake, they get put on a waiting list, and they wait for the programs that they would match with to have spaces on their caseloads. And once that happens, then they can start working with a caseworker to help resolve their homelessness.
Okay. So like this caseworker, is that someone within Safe Harbour, or like do you work with other agencies and they have a caseworker depending on the program, or like how does that? How can I imagine that?
Diana, do you want to explain the programs that we work with?
Sure. We have what we call intensive case management. So where a client would be have a higher SPDAT score. So the agencies that we have that would be able to help with intensive case management that we work with are YMCA. Native Friendship Society has Aboriginal intensive case management, and so does Shining Mountains. We also have permanent supportive housing, which would be for a client who's at a higher acuity and have higher needs. And so we have the Amethyst and the Pathways program for those. For lower needs clients, they usually score what we call in the rapid rehousing 1 or rapid rehousing 2 categories. And the agencies that have rapid rehousing housing are the Outreach Center. McMahon has youth focused, and Native Friendship and Shining Mountains has Indigenous focused supports for clients who are wanting cultural supports. And so we tell clients that when they sign up for coordinated entry that they're going to be matched with a caseworker for about a year, sometimes more, sometimes less. And so the clients working with a caseworker for a year or more, those are the intensive case management. And then you're looking at more like 6 months for a rapid rehousing.
Wow. Wow. So you work with so many agencies depending on, wow. Oh, that's amazing. And so when we say coordinated entry, are you basically the coordinated entry for all those different programs, or does each agency has like a coordinated entry team? Like how does it?
There's a few different entry points throughout the city. So coordinated, Safe Harbour has a coordinated entry team, and that's the 3 of us here that you see today. And then there's also a coordinated entry team at the Native Friendship Society, as well as McMahon. And McMahon is a youth focused, and the Friendship Society is an Aboriginal focused intake. But we all can do intakes with anybody, and we all do the exact same thing and get people on the exact same list and match to the exact same programs.
Wow.
So that system has basically set up those different entry points in order to help facilitate comfort for that individual. So if I'm Indigenous and I'm looking for housing, I might just naturally go to Native Friendship. And rather than them having to say, oh, we can't do an intake here with you, we have to send you over here, they can initialize that work just like our team can, right? And same with the youth, right? So that's the intent of it, is to be client focused always and respectful of what is the most comfortable entry point for this particular person, right? But if I'm at the shelter, like if I'm Buddy out at the shelter and I want to get housed, and I don't know anything about anything on how to do that, how does this coordinated entry team help me? Because I don't know how to phone you or do anything.
The staff at the shelter have our phone numbers, and there's a poster that they have up all over the place in the shelter, and they can give the clients our numbers. Crystal is typically the first person of contact for somebody who's in the shelter. She has days that she's just specifically working in the shelter, doing intakes with people, meeting with people, giving them information, doing pre-screens, maybe diverting them to shelter diversion, or another agency that does like a prevention program, possibly, if they're appropriate for that. And then if Crystal's not there that day, then they'll be given our phone numbers and they can just call any one of us. And they'll be given, the poster has every intake contact on it. So if they can't get through to say me or Crystal or Diana, they're welcome to call the Friendship Center or Rachel over at McMahon, and we can all give them the exact same information. And we also work together, like all of the teams, we're cohesive and we work together, and we make sure that we're not double intaking people, and we just make sure that we're all doing what the client needs.
Crystal, what's that bit for you? So are you actually hanging out at this? What are you doing there?
So yeah, absolutely. I go into the shelter. We have a shelter diversion worker who has been just wonderful, super asset to the team. She often will call me and say if there's any new referrals in case I am not in the shelter that day, or I could even be in the shelter. And there's so many people that sometimes I can't get to meet everyone, but she will refer that individual to me.
But Crystal,
Otherwise,
let me interrupt you for a sec. What's shelter diversion mean?
so shelter diversion's a new program, very new, so don't quote me on everything, but I have been a part of it a little bit, and it's they don't want anyone to stay in the shelter any longer than 21 days. So it's your first initial intake. If you're first time homeless, you're really uncomfortable with the shelter holds and just the people around and that. And so that person walks them through everything. They help with IDs and income support. And
So
it's a
there is
lot.
actually a staff in the shelter, but
Yes.
their main focus is on doing all we can for Buddy to help divert him from having to stay here for very long.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you have been homeless for longer, then that's when it's referred to myself. If I'm right there, then I can do the intake. It works really well. Sometimes I've booked appointments and that person, for whatever reason, is unable to make it, and there's other people waiting in line. So I can do it right then and there. Yeah.
Cool.
It's
And I heard, rumor has it that you're a girl that gets around. And I know that you're out there working in doing that same sort of thing for lots of different places. Can you give us an example of a few of them?
Yeah. And I love that part of the role that I can do that outreach. Get a lot of calls from the social workers at the hospital on the different units. So I can make that appointment, make that connection with them and go there. Same with women's outreach, women's shelter. I have gone to a school once, so that was different. You know, we have families as well with children that require housing. So yeah,
Cool.
I get to go out there and meet all sorts of people.
So it wasn't just a rumor. You are getting around.
It's fun.
Right on.
Love it.
So this piece, I can't pretend to be ignorant about because I'm very familiar with the amount of people who are currently sitting on what we refer to as the waiting list. So I might be Buddy and I might get hooked up initially with Crystal or the shelter diversion worker. I might have come to coordinated entry and had one of the three of you do a SPDAT on me and an assessment. And then what happens to me?
Well, they wait on a waiting list for the agencies that they match with, and that's determined by their SPDAT score. So when we do that SPDAT, that assessment, that is determining which program they should be working with based on their needs. It determines their acuity, so their level of need. From that SPDAT, we generate a score, and that score is what places them on the CAP list, or the waiting list, we often call it. So they don't need a high score or a low score. It's just that each agency we work with has their own block of scores. So their score will place them with the correct agency for their needs. From there, they wait on that waiting list. Or it's really hard to say how long. I've been telling people lately that it will take several weeks to get them a caseworker. Once the agency that they are matched with has spaces on their caseload and it's their turn, they will we'll call them and let them know, or we'll leave messages for them wherever we've already determined that would be appropriate to leave those messages. And then from there, we get them the information they need to get started working with their caseworker.
So just because I'm going to an agency doesn't mean I'm going to get housed.
No, I wish. There's no actual readily available housing. We do have some permanent supported housing programs that have actual housing that people can move into, but the waiting lists are very long, and they unfortunately have to wait, I'd say, over a year to get into something like that.
Well, and you almost, because those options are limited in our community, you almost have to wait until someone leaves or dies before there's a spot available, because they're held onto so dearly, those spots.
100%. Yeah. And the rooms often need substantial repairs once somebody moves out of one, just because of the types of needs that the folks we are working with have. And the people who move into permanent supported housing are not successful in typical market housing or scattered site housing. They've shown that their lifestyle just doesn't support living on their own without staff on site for various reasons.
Yes, and otherwise you're setting them up for failure.
100%.
And they're just back to see you guys again.
Yeah, we'll often try it, maybe match them to an ICM program, say with YMCA or Native Friendship, especially if they're not agreeable to moving into a permanent supported housing site. They often feel that that's a step backwards. It's our job to educate them that this is a step forwards or a stepping stone to market housing where they can live independently. But their lifestyle just shows that they cannot, there just won't be successful. So often we'll try it just as kind of like a just in case, you know, it might work in very, you know, random cases, but typically they end up back on our waiting list to wait for permanent supported housing.
So if and when I get housed, then does that case management stay with me once I'm housed?
Yeah, that's the whole point of it. So the caseworker will, number one, help them find housing, but then they have to commit to working with the caseworker for usually about a year. It can be a little less, a little more, just depending what their needs are. But the caseworker will want to come to their place regularly. They'll have visits. They'll work on things that are housing related. And the goal at the end of that year is to have that person be independent and have enough external support set up, like wraparound supports, so that they don't need that caseworker anymore. And that caseworker can now take somebody else.
Yeah. Well, in that journey, hey, you guys know full well how long that journey is to get, Buddy might want to be housed. That's one thing. I might want to be housed. But like you just said, Mel, like that doesn't mean I want all these people around helping me. I think I'm quite capable. In reality, I'm not. But even that journey to accept that, and be, yeah, okay. And I guess I'm going to have to do this. And certainly, I think back in the day, Crystal, you mentioned that you used to work at Harbour House, and that was our first attempt at a Housing First program, and we loved it so much. And Crystal will know as well as I do about the wonderful stories that we had coming out of that housing model, and unfortunately, it wasn't something we could sustain because it was expensive. It required 24-hour staffing. And that compared to being only able to support 8 people in the house, the numbers don't work for the people that are counting the money, right? And so that we know the magic that can happen in situations like that. And sometimes too, like thank God for Amethyst and Pathways, like you guys are saying, that's a program run by Canadian Mental Health, and obviously supported by the all of these housing focused staff we have in our different agencies, and that's wonderful. It's an entirely different model than Harbour House was, which was almost like a little family, because they could be, because it was small and they were together and it was different, right? And so really speaks loudly about how we need not just one model, but a few, especially now with crystal meth and stuff. Hey, behaviors are so much bigger than they used to be, and therein much harder to keep people housed. They need so much, right? When I think of you three, and the great work that you're doing, as a captain, I think about how difficult it is for me to keep your hopes up that things will get better, but in turn, for you to keep their hopes up when they are on that list time and again, and how frustrating that must be, and how hard it must be to keep telling them the same thing. Like I have to keep telling you, there is no funding for that. No, we can't do that. Can't do that. And I hate that part because you want to, you see all the need. And here, we always say at the Harbor, you come because you want to help this much, but in reality, you get here and you find out you can only do this much. But this much is everything. That connection is everything when there isn't one, So talk to me about how you deal. How do you support each other? You guys you must be supporting each other a lot.
No, we rely on each other to debrief and vent and cry and how do I help this person? And oftentimes we just need to brainstorm together, and that's where the other coordinated entry teams come in too, because we'll call each other and be like, how can we, what can we do? Or this situation is just slightly different than we've come across before. So we just brainstorm.
Yeah.
With them being on the wait list, that cap list for so long, another issue sometimes, and definitely how we rely on our partners. We work a lot with Street Connect. We worked a lot with our outreach team. I don't even know what our job would look like without our outreach team, to be honest, because with having them on the wait list, we still have to check in every 30 or 60, but for sure before 90 days, just to update their scores, see where they're at, check in. So a client who's connected, who's living in the bush, outreach is our support to get them any messages with their, like, they don't have a cell phone. They're like, so outreach is our connection with them. And they're able to, if we haven't seen anyone, there's been so many times where I've been really close to having to dismiss someone, and outreach has like saved my behind a lot. So I really can't stress enough how great of an asset they are for our job, as well as Street Connect for the high.
And what's Street Connect, Diana? Tell us what Street Connect is.
Uh-oh, well, I better not get this wrong. Well, I learned about Street Connect when they were really new, and the social diversion team was really new as well. So I've actually seen Street Connect nurses go out in the bush after hours, like in the evening, and get someone who's in a mental health crisis their medication. So they're just great in that capacity. They're teams who are out in the field, meeting people where they're at. And for a coordinated entry specialist, they are helping facilitate clients with high acuity to get them to their intake appointments, as well as helping us facilitate those check-ins. And sometimes we're very careful to get our consent from the client. So then we're able to sometimes, if we haven't laid eyes specifically on a person, we can get an update through Street Connect and our outreach teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so cool to have AHS's mental health team on the ground with you guys. I remember back in the day, 100 years ago, when Colleen and I were doing outreach for Canadian Mental Health, and then we had Alberta Mental Health alongside with us too, right? And what a difference it makes just to have that whole gamut when we're talking about the complexity of need, right? Yeah, and we're always happy to share the load, aren't we? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Come help, and they did.
And they are too.
Yeah, they are too. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So I was
Crystal, they must really appreciate. Oh, sorry,
no,
Crystal.
sorry.
They must
No,
really appreciate that up at the hospital too, Crystal. Hey.
Sorry, what was that? With the hospital?
Yeah, that they must really appreciate being able to give you a call, because I know so often their hands are tied. What to do with this person, right? And
yeah, I definitely thank you for bringing that up, because I was going to mention it. Yeah, with the hospital, working with the social workers, if the intake isn't suitable for them, then I can offer them resources as well. And also I've been going to Mustard Seed, and there's so many over there as well. So just, it's a real team effort with all the organizations, and just that connection, communicating. And we have a lot of group chats too, and debriefing and tossing around ideas of what we can do for that individual. Definitely goes above and beyond.
Yeah. Well, and you guys on the front line, man. That's where the silos disappear if we're lucky, and we're doing, we're shining our lights bright together. Up here in funding political land, the silos are very much intact, but on the ground where the work is going on, most importantly, just like you said, Crystal, everybody's trying to help, and doing whatever pieces they can do, which unfortunately isn't always enough. Because if it was, we'd have lots more people housed. Certainly, COVID's made a difference. Numbers are crazy. They're crazy in the shelter. They're crazy on your wait lists. And yeah, it's high time we get these housing options built.
Yeah, we've got some really great programs that we work with, but we need far more of them to make a dent in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, what are we talking about in terms of numbers? Like, how many people like are in contact with you? Like, I don't know, can we say per day or per week or?
Per day, it varies. I mean, on a day like, what was that, Wednesday, for example, all three of us, and I think the other agencies were experiencing it too, like our phones just did not stop. I was on the phone and I probably had 3 voicemails before I even hung up talking to one person.
Wow.
So, but you know, a day like today seems to be a little slower. My phone's probably only rang about 10 times today instead of 500. So it's really varies, but currently waiting, like people who have done an intake and are waiting on the cap list, the waiting list for a program is about 135 right now today, and that fluctuates each week. So each week we meet with the agencies we work with each Wednesday morning, and we discuss that waiting list. And that's when we find out how many spaces are available with each program that week, and then we can match the people that are at the top. It's a prioritization list. So the people who are sleeping rough and have a high SPDAT score will be matched first, and then we go down the list as we have spaces available. Yeah, so each week it fluctuates, and then as we do more intakes, then it adds more, and then on Wednesdays we match people. If we can get them, then they have to be successfully, like they have to meet with the caseworker, they have to go through a process with them and agree to the program, and that's not always successful just based on lots of things. So it's an ongoing, we often see people rotate back in several times before they are successful or find something that works.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
And is it usually is it person itself or that connects with you, or is it also maybe a family member or?
Family, friends, support workers, they can all connect with us, but ultimately the client, the person experiencing homelessness needs to call us and do the intake and follow through with the intake appointment. Nothing's successful without their participation. Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any stories to share that that you have experience with in your journey with them? Diana, why don't you share yours with what you told earlier?
Oh, the outreach center, they started a few months ago with their caseworkers. They just decided that they would start sharing some good news, which is great because we often don't get any kind of follow through, like Mel alluded to. Usually when we're getting updates, it's bad news because the client are coming back to the list to start the process again. But the outreach center, their caseworkers have been sharing some good news. So when they get their clients, our client successfully housed and get their program is well underway and things are going good, they give us good news email letting us know. So it's been really good, and I always make sure to share it with the others if it's a client, like one of my clients, so that we all have the happy good news. Because like Mel said, a lot of times we have clients waiting on the list for a long time and we don't get any kind of follow-up.
I think that I think everybody at the harbor or in like agencies feel that same thing. There is no check mark at the end of your work. You know, like, okay, that's done. Done.
Successful.
Everything's good and it's all done, right? So it's, it might be great for right now, but we're always ready for when it might not be again, right? And that sense of accomplishment, satisfaction, all of those things, they come in different ways. They don't come as a result of that job is finished and it's done. I won't ever have to do it again. Right? It doesn't come like that.
No.
What? Yeah.
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 We've also had some successful matches lately with permanent supported housing. So where people actually move into the building and there's staff on site and they have help with guest management, maybe medication administration, that kind of thing, really helps people stabilize. We've had some really hard to house people matched with those two programs recently, and that is something that we hold on to as a good news, like kind of what keeps us going, even though the waiting lists are a year long for those programs. The people who have been taken into those programs in the last, I'd say 2 or 3 months. I mean, not that it wasn't before that, but like definitely matched recently have been very hard to house people who needed the support so desperately. And that's been really good news for us.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah. We just need more of them so we can keep feeling that way. Right. And they're coming. Yeah. The city has prioritized it. The province has prioritized it. So eventually we should see some money for it. And
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been so great to have you here, ladies. Is there anything else that you would love to share that we maybe didn't touch on?
I can think of one thing. A lot of our calls, like we're not just setting up appointments with clients who are appropriate with us. We're also fielding a host of calls. So we refer a lot to the prevention programs so maybe it's the client's first time ever experiencing homelessness and they have been homeless for less than 30 days. Then it's a prevention program generally. So we'll refer out. Sometimes it's just clients who don't really qualify for any housing program, but they don't know how to get connected with other resources. So sometimes it's kind of not quite in the scope of the CE, but we do our best to get the appropriate referral for clients.
Still making that connection.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mel.
I was just gonna also touch on what Diana was saying about calls coming in. We get a lot of calls from family members who are worried about their family member who's struggling with addiction or homelessness, and we just kind of give them a picture of what the help that's out there looks like, and then they can make a good decision based on what their need is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's so great, you guys. Your lights are shining bright out there, as usual, as always.
Yeah,
never
as
ending.
always.
As always.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa, Diana, and Crystal. Kath, do you have anything to add to our episode today?
Well, I especially love the fact that we're highlighting this team who so often the news and the focus and everything has been on shelter, the people staying in shelter, and it's really good to go into the corners of the harbor and see all the hard work that's going on in there. And especially, I certainly empathize with the heaviness of the wait list. And I know how hard and frustrating it is for people to wait. And I know how difficult it can be to continue, not to support them, but to muster up what you need, as a captain, when I get crazy like that and I get cynical, maybe not with Buddy, but inside my head, right? I'm cynical. It's like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to change? And we got to do right? Yeah. And it's really heavy. And so I know this crew, I know that they will help each other. They do help each other. And they have a broader network of support. They always have us. And I know they have the deep appreciation of the people that they're so desperately trying to serve in a good way. So yeah, It's our little harbor cruise, more of the harbor cruise.
I'm always amazed about our stuff. Like this is like so cool.
Yeah.
And as you said, Kath, like I would say in the mind of our community, probably 90% of what they think Safe Harbor does is shelter. And like every time we have a team at the corner, like today or with the outreach team or detox, it's like, oh my God, like there's so much more. There's like a whole machine behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a heartbeat. It's a heartbeat,
heartbeat.
of, yeah, a good strong heartbeat.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today. For everyone listening, thank you so much for joining in too. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Also, we have a YouTube channel where we have all of our episodes uploaded. You can binge watch them there if you like. And yeah, so Kath, I will leave the last words up to you as usual.
Thank you. And I want to just make quick mention for anybody who's listening that was planning to come to our Harbor Ho-Ho next week. We've decided we have to cancel it because of the flu outbreak that our main building has, first our shelter had, which is getting better, but the main building got hit really bad last week. We had so many people sick, and I thought it's not the time to be inviting people into the harbor. So we're going to do a Harbor Ho-Ho by heart and send out a bunch of love to people, but unfortunately we can't welcome them in. We'll be sending out more of an announcement through our email contacts and of course on social media, but just in case anybody's listening and was planning on coming on Thursday, we can't welcome you. We just can't do it right now. But yeah, we'll do it by heart.
That's what we will do.
So other than that, as always, steady as she goes.
Steady as she goes. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.